everyone. I am Jessica Loché-Eggert. I am an inclusion diversity consultant. I run an inclusion and diversity consulting firm called Include up in Seattle. We are going to be talking about the tech apprenticeship model today. And I really love that Twilio was able Hatch was able to start that for us, and really talking about how to advocate for the apprenticeship model in your organization. And so what we're talking about today is a little bit different from what you've seen in any other organization, and it's a model created by Apprenti. But to get started, I'd love for everybody to go down the line and introduce themselves, and then we'll just jump right in.
Hi, my name is Sean Farrow. I'm a recent software engineer at Avo in Seattle.
I'm Kevin Goldsmith. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Avo in Seattle.
My name is Tammy Thieman, and I run the Veteran Military Recruiting Program at Amazon.
And I'm Jennifer Carlson. I'm the Executive Director of Apprenti.
Excellent. And Sean, would you like to get started and tell us a little bit how you got to become a software engineer at Avo?
Yeah, so just so you guys know, I recently accepted my offer on September 25th. And yeah, thank you. It's very special to me. And 7 months before that, I started as an apprentice. I had no professional background in coding. My experience in coding was some coding classes from a code bootcamp, as well as prior to that, I went to a technical college for a 2-year associate's computer science degree. So originally in 2009, I graduated from college, the bachelor's degree, business and art. You know, economy wasn't doing so well, so I didn't have much luck getting a job, and I started working at a moving company in Seattle. And you know, being a tech metropolitan area, I was able to move a lot of you know, tech professionals and got to know kind of what the industry was like, kind of, you know, what the work day was like, and it kind of got me interested in, you know, approaching the technical space. So I chose to go to Renton Technical College, where they taught a little bit about a lot and not enough about one that made me feel confident to get a job. Entering the workplace has kind of showed for me. And when I say that, I mean like they taught us JavaScript, C#, HTML, CSS, SQL, like a bunch of stuff that in 2 years of schooling, you should probably be professionally trained to enter the market. And through applying and such, to no avail, I was in a position where it's either I go back to school and take on more debt, or I continue my job and not be happy. So I chose to go the coding bootcamp route and did the first 2 classes. And I didn't have enough money to actually do the complete program, which, you know, gives you the skills to enter the workplace. So that's where Apprenti comes in, and I'm so grateful. Basically, Apprenti allowed me to finish out my coding training at no cost to me. And while I was in class, like, I knew I was going to a workplace, so I didn't have the stresses of, you know, getting my resume together or interviewing with companies and all that stuff. It was just strictly focusing on the technical skill that needs to be known to apply to the job. And yeah, so I couldn't be more grateful for Apprenti, and I strongly suggest that other companies look into this program.
Excellent, thank you. And so I'd like to turn it over to Jen, the Executive Director of Apprenti and Washington Technology Industry Association, one of the largest nonprofits up in Washington, actually. And can you tell us a little bit more about this apprenticeship model and how it differs from other programs?
Yeah, so just to give you a quick framework of apprenticeship, this is registered tech apprenticeship. So we built the pilot program with the support of the state of Washington and the U.S. Department of Labor, who manages and oversees what we probably view as traditionally a trades model. So we took best practices from the European model, where tech has already been an apprenticed position for 50 years, and then took best practices out of our system here and partnered with industry to build a framework for how apprenticeship can work for the tech sector while using those same core principles and delivering at the same level, and focusing our efforts on diversity and inclusion, and including or bringing to the table more women, people of color, and veterans to fill roles that the industry has identified as apprenticeable, which are really strong career positions that are mid-tier. So these are generally $70,000 to $80,000 jobs or higher with a long trail behind them, meaning they have years of success ahead of them. And we retrain folks from non-traditional backgrounds, college or non-college, irrelevant, and bring them over from other industries potentially, get them prepared through an accelerated classroom model, and then get them a year of experience with a hiring company who underwrites their salary and benefits while they're on the job for that year, where they get their hands-on experience. And that's really where this model kind of bridges the gap to try and fill more than half of the available positions in the country for those jobs. And then we work with companies like Amazon and Avo, who are here today to talk from their perspective about why apprenticeship can work as a model and why they've chosen to hire. So we'll talk more during the workshop after this about the fundamentals of how it works. So I'd rather focus more here on the companies and their experiences.
Excellent, and that's a great segue. So I'd love to turn it over to you two. So there are a lot of different programs out there to bring in non-traditional and to fill the wage gap and to bring in more diverse candidates into our organizations. Why did you choose Apprenti to bring into your existing initiatives?
So Amazon, I lead our military program, and so one of the things that we have been incredibly focused on is bringing military into the organization at Amazon Web Services. And really, as we started evaluating, we know that military are a fantastic fit culturally with what we do. But we also know that veterans were not actually meeting the technical bar that we needed them to. And so there's a lot of different things that we've tried, right? We tried just pure training programs, but as Jennifer alluded, you can go and you can get the knowledge, but not having that hands-on, on-the-job experience is really detrimental to a candidate. And so as we really started evaluating what is the right model to bring in candidates who are coming from a non-traditional source, we really learned that having both formalized education along with hands-on education and experience really was the right mix for us to kind of go after that talent set. So I think really for us, one, we had a huge interest in hiring veterans. Obviously, we made a commitment to hire 25,000 of them. And then really it was about partnership. We have been able to work with Apprenti in such a collaborative way to be able to say, this is the kind of candidate that we're looking for. This is what we would like to see in somebody who's going to be successful at Amazon and Apprenticeship. And so being able to collaborate in that way and really customize both the formal training and then the work that we do afterwards certainly was a benefit to us as an organization.
Yeah, for Avo, it was very much, I joined the company about 18 months ago, and for me, one of the things I wanted to make sure we did as a company with me in this role was to actually put a big focus on building a diverse and inclusive culture. And so right after I joined, actually, I was at the WTIA, and Michael, the CEO, was telling me about the Apprenti model, and it just was, oh, this is exactly the kind of thing that I've been looking for. We're not an Amazon scale company, we're a mid-size startup. So to build our own apprentice model would have been really difficult and taken a lot of energy. And having something like this that existed that we could work with in a different way, but very much work with, and getting in at the beginning was just an amazing opportunity. And to be able to help start this program and be another voice, another company that's supporting this program was also pretty important to me, because I think the model itself is really valuable. So that's why we got specifically involved with the Apprenti program. We do work with other programs as well, but for bringing in both veterans people of color. I don't know if anybody else is actually focused on diversity the way Apprenti is in such a broad way.
That's great. And so a lot of organizations weren't structured to bring in employees, to bring in team members from a non-traditional path. Right? And yet it's a path we're finding we need to take more now that we have this we're noticing this diversity gap, but we also have a gap from, as they were just mentioning in the previous panel, from how many college students there are in computer science to the actual need in the tech industry, and we're growing. Both of you are really fast-growing organizations. And so can you attest to some of the changes that you've had to make in your organization to be able to bring in that mentorship model to include these apprentices?
So this is something I think we've done. I don't like to toot our horn because we have a lot of work to do. But this is one thing. This is one thing I think we've done well. When I joined Avo, we'd very much been only hiring CS grads, senior developers, and honestly, we'd had a culture that was really combative. It was really, we'd drop new people in and sink or swim, kind of really not a good place to work. And that was one of the things, as I got to understand sort of what I was dealing with, we had to change. And so for me, part of also bringing in folks from non-traditional backgrounds is we made it the job of the senior developers to mentor. This is now expected of you. And it was tough, actually. We've lost quite a few of them who were just not interested. But it was more important to me that we build this mentoring culture and that this becomes a place that we are than to try and worry about, well, I don't want to lose anybody, so I'm not going to ask them to do anything that's uncomfortable for them. We've had it's been a transition, but if I look at us today and where we were a year and a half ago, like the environment, like working at Avo is just so much more pleasurable from everybody's perspective. It's just a nicer place to be. So from that aspect, like I kind of cheated by using not just the apprentices, but basically saying, this is how we're going to be, and using the apprentices as a way of saying, this is why we're doing it. But it's worked out exceptionally well.
That's really interesting because one of the things that we talk about inclusion is making sure our values match. Right? We're stating our value, we're stating our mission, our purpose, and we're bringing in employees who match those values and who feel that they want to be a part of that culture and help us grow wiser and more efficiently. And so you're able to get rid of the people who are just weren't good fits, right? Weren't good fits for Avo's culture, especially as you grow.
Exactly.
If I can add to that, I think one thing that resonated from this morning on the opening plenary is that it's not enough to just set a bar and a goal for diversity and inclusion hiring. It has to be a cultural shift inside the organization. The first step can be that goal, but that is only the North Star. It isn't the actual implementation. And it's a different mindset that has to take place. And many of the hiring companies, and Jason's not sitting on the panel right now, but will be in the room later from Microsoft, whether it's Microsoft or F5, Comtech, or any of our other hiring partners on this, it has to be departmentally, environmentally, a culture shift and a concerted effort. It can't just be, checkbox, I hired X, right? It's about a mind shift.
Absolutely. So Tammy, can you attest to some of the changes that you have had to make at Amazon?
Sure. So certainly at a company of the size of Amazon, there certainly is a lot of just functional things that have to be changed, right? So being able to get our HR systems and our pay systems and all of those things in line with being able to host apprentices. But beyond just the mechanics of what has to be done internally, I think it really does come to similar to Avo in that it's really understanding that the idea of a team mentality and a development mentality at the team level. And what I mean by that is it really happens at the operational level, right? And so bringing folks in, I think the entire tech community is very much a self-service industry, right? We're all very self-sufficient. There's a way to go look it up or a way to figure it out or work through the problem, right? And while that's been super effective and it's a great way to work, and I think certainly we want to build that in folks, there is still a piece of that development and going from truly being a 100% self-service model to, hey, I'm ingrained in a team that's helping me develop and develop my skills. And so I think really working at the operational level and helping the individual teams who are taking on these apprentices has been really critical. And the ways that we've kind of gone after that, it sounds fairly similar to Avo in that we've done a lot of work in developing our mentors. So it isn't just making sure that our apprentices are progressing the way they need to against their benchmarks. It's also setting expectations with our mentors and then ensuring that they're progressing as they continue to develop, and what things should they be focusing on as developers of people. And so I think that's been an important part and an important shift.
It's great, and that mindset, I'm sure you can think of it as a co-mentorship, because while you might be learning from people who have a little bit more experience, they're learning from people who have a completely different perspective from them, and who took a completely different educational path, right? Can you talk a little bit about the mentorship program, or how the mentorship program worked for you within Avo?
Yeah. So as part of the program, I'm given one mentor. And that didn't last very long because the rest of my team members pitched in to help as well. So technically I had one, but my whole team was there to help. And if my team didn't, because everybody doesn't know everything. So if you ask one person a question, they might not know, and they have to pass you to the next guy. And it's not because they can't figure it out, just the efficiency of getting work done. Like it's as an organization as a whole, it makes more sense, right? So even beyond my team, some of the other journey teams at our company, if I had to go to them and ask for help, without a doubt, I was getting help, and not reluctant help either. People are just willing to help out. And another thing, maybe 2 months into my apprenticeship, my mentor is asking me for help because he didn't know a language that I was trained in. So it, like you're saying, it goes both ways, right? I can help them as they help me.
So co-mentorship and a lot of professional development. And so we know that technical skills is what gets you in the door, right? But it's not what sustains your career path. It's not what helps you get to that next level consistently. Can we talk a little bit down the line, talk a little bit about the other competencies or skills that you've needed or you've seen in your new team members?
So I think really what we look for, everything that we do at Amazon is measured by our leadership principles. And so we absolutely measure anyone coming in the door, whether they're an apprentice, or whether they're an employee, whether they're a contractor. We really measure against leadership principles. And then as we measure success, we measure it against leadership principles. And I think you hit on something incredibly important. One of our leadership principles is to learn and be curious. And when we look at apprentices, and I know Jennifer could say, yep, we've heard that a time or two, right? When we look at apprentices, we really look to identify, do they have that learn and be curious leadership principle? One, has it gotten to the place of where they've gotten because they really do have a curiosity and they are great learners? But then two, are they lifelong learners, right? Are they going to continue to learn and be curious as they move through the process, whether it's just apprenticeship or continuing on as an employee? And so I think that is such an important component of success at Amazon that I think we really ask our apprentices, even more than their technical skills in some cases, that they're going to be lifelong learners as they join our organization.
I think sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing I appreciate, I've appreciated a lot about not only the apprentices, but other folks we've hired that are in their second or third career, is that they bring in a professional maturity and just a personal maturity that is amazing, is a really great in the team, right? So if I compare somebody like Sean or one of our other folks who started against our college hires are, maybe they've done more training, but they're figuring out how to do a job. They've never worked at a real job before, and honestly, the folks who've come in who have already been like a school psychologist or a high school physics teacher, former, they know what it is to actually work at a job, and they're dedicated and much, like we spend way less time supporting them, honestly, in a lot of ways than we do the folks who come out of a school with a 4-year degree. And that part I especially appreciate. Yeah. Right? There's a work ethic, there's a professionalism that's been really great.
Anecdotally, I might just add, when we look at our teams, one of our customer support teams that does deep technical work in supporting our customers, talk about one of their very best hires, and it happened to be a military infantryman. And it wasn't because his technical skills were so much more superior, but it was just that he'd had a lot of life experience, and he knew that it was that resiliency and the I'm going to take the hill at all cost was really what pushed him ahead. And so where we do hire folks who are coming out of technical backgrounds in the military, this was somebody who had no technical background whatsoever, but was wildly successful because they had that life experience, they had the resiliency, and they had the desire to learn and be curious.
Yeah, so from our perspective, the thesis we went in creating Apprenti was that anybody can do the work if they have the right mindset, and that this is about competency and not pedigree. So, all the jobs aside that we think are apprenticeable, it was identifying people who have that intellectual curiosity, lifelong desire to learn, and are not going to give up. They've got good grit and are going to work hard to figure it out. And those are the people we have the best success with. And whether it's the apprentices we've sent to you or anybody else, you're an exemplary example of that, Sean. And by the way, apprentice number 2 sitting in front of us in first conversion. Thank you. And what we've learned in that thesis that we went in with was about finding the people with that mentality and not about their prior work experience or their pedigree if they have one. And proving out that this is about the ability and giving people a different pathway in to take these jobs. And it's worked really, really well, and we've got a wide range of companies that was represented here that have come along with us on that journey. But part of that grit mentality is that 50% of the people who come through the program on the front end and are desiring an opportunity to even interview go through the assessment process twice, which is a time investment. That means they really want to be there, which means that it isn't necessarily about ranking number 1 in that list. It's about how persistent you are and how tenacious you are about getting through it.
Some great competencies we've listed off, and I think it's so important. We've seen a lot of organizations, these scorecards, right? When we're interviewing, do we have the technical skills? Do we know about the organization? Are we passionate about their purpose? But now we've mentioned, grit and tenacity and the leadership skills of the drive, right? The drive, and something you'll find in a lot of military vets, the camaraderie, the team-oriented mindset. And I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but a lot of emotional intelligence there, that self-awareness and that want to learn about others as well. So can we talk a little bit about how organizations are supporting the retention of these women and minorities and veterans? So how are you supporting, sorry. So we talked a little bit about sourcing. Got lost in my own question there for a second. We talked a little bit about sourcing, but now talking about the retention portion of it, the rest of the employee life cycle.
Sure. So, I think a couple different things. One is, we work very hard at Amazon to create an environment where diversity of thought is appreciated and valued. So certainly, one, it's just the environment that Amazon is, which is, hey, we absolutely value difference of perspective and diversity of thought. But as we really try to make sure from an apprentice standpoint is we spend a lot of time kind of digging into what are the challenges, what are the roadblocks, what are the successes that an apprentice gets. And so, as I mentioned, we check in every 2 weeks with our apprentices and go, hey, let's talk about, where are you experiencing these challenges, or what successes have you had? Let's celebrate together. And so I think those regular touch points are super effective at kind of creating, one, the camaraderie that you mentioned, but then also breeding in a desire to be in that environment and be connected to that environment.
Sean asked me, I was doing a town hall a while ago, and Sean actually asked me that question, like, because somebody asked me about the work that we were doing to increase diversity and inclusion. Sean asked me about retention, and I had a horrible answer then, or just not a great answer. I don't think I have a better answer now, to be honest. What I feel like has worked for us is making it so that diversity and inclusion has become our norm, as opposed to something special or a program that we've done, partially because of our size. So we've been able to change percentages very rapidly to now where we're 29% female and non-binary, 10% minority, and we've been able to do that relatively quickly. But the programs that we created originally around supporting our interns and apprentices have now just become what we do with everybody. So senior developers not only mentor junior developers, apprentices, and interns, but they mentor each other. These things that we created around specifically helping these things are now just what we do. And what I've been trying to do is to make it so that nobody feels other, right? So what we do for our apprentices, for our interns, for our underrepresented community is what we do for everybody and each other. And so what I've been trying to do, I guess, is just norm things. Like we don't do, and maybe that's not a great way. So far it's worked. We haven't lost anybody, but it's still early. But just to try and make that's just who we are and that's what we do, rather than say, well, we're going to do these very specific things around this. I don't know. I can't promise that that's the solution, but it's working fairly well. You'd know more than me. It's easy for me.
No, yeah. When I asked that question, I didn't even know what answer I was expecting. But for me, I like that there isn't like, I don't feel like I'm of a certain color or, I'm a junior developer even at that. Like everyone is just included into this one bucket, and I think I appreciate that more than like, oh, we're starting an African-American group that meets on Thursday evenings. Like, to me, that's being forced and it's not organic. And, then you have, it's not a genuine work group,
Yeah, I think from, just pure apprenticeship, I can't answer for internships, which are usually college enrolled and shorter term. While that's a title and there's an agreement in place and an operating structure around it, the reality is they have to be treated like employees. You can't segment them and treat them differently, or they'll never become part of the fabric or the infrastructure of the organization, which makes it that forced change as opposed to an organic change. So while they come in with a different title based on operating structure to the company, we ask the companies to treat them like employees and ingrain them in their operating structure as such.
And Kevin, I think that's a great answer, and it alludes to the fact that there's no one answer out there to create an inclusive environment for an organization. There are a few models, and we'll try a few of the things, and some of them might not work for Avvo, and some of them might work better for Amazon or any other organization out there. So we are almost opening up to Q&A. But is there anything that I haven't asked that you wish I had, right? Anything you want to touch on about the apprenticeship programs, especially you, Sean?
Do it.
Not a question, but yes, there you go.
I would ask Jennifer. Jennifer, this program has worked very well in Washington.
Yeah.
Is this available in other states as a national program at this time?
It is. Yes, we were funded by the Department of Labor to expand the program nationally, so it's currently operating in Oregon and Virginia. Michigan is coming online shortly, and we received private funding from JPMorgan Chase. Thank you very much to the JPMorgan Chase Foundation to open up Ohio and California. So we are coming here shortly. And then Colorado and Arizona are on deck next. And a number of states behind that showing interest. And so it's about partnerships in local markets and identifying hiring companies, because without a hiring company, there isn't an apprenticeship. So that would be our starting place. And if anybody has questions, please see us after this session.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think, I think you just touched on a really important word, particularly when you're thinking about apprenticeship, and that's partnership, right? It really is, it's really about a partnership between candidates who are looking for opportunities, companies who are trying to grow and scale like ours. It's about an entire industry, right? So when somebody comes in and is successful as an apprenticeship at Amazon, they may not stay at Amazon for their entire career, and we understand that, right? Now, obviously, we hope they do. But at the end of the day, it really is about creating a partnership across the entire tech community. And that's the only way that apprenticeship and skills development and talent development really work, is creating and leveraging those great partnerships.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, both from a scale perspective as well as we as the intermediary on behalf of industry and government and educators, our role is to improve the ecosystem as a whole. So this is about building a unified system and not a city by city, industry by industry, company by company type model. Everything we've built to scale and built to sort of what I call the 80-20 here. It's an 80% fidelity, because the role of a software developer, the role of a database administrator, they don't look that dissimilar, whether you're in healthcare, high tech, or financial services. 80% of that job will generally look the same, 20% becoming industry sector or company centric. So building to that means that anybody who's coming out of this program, because people don't stay with the company for 40 years anymore, they're going to be able to move on and take that skill set and the credential of a completed apprenticeship, just like the trades, and be able to move on and have a career path at another company and not have to start over. So the intent is to build this healthy ecosystem where everybody who's engaging is helping to produce more bodies that decrease the talent gap that we have across the country.
Great. Yeah, no, that's it. And so we've got 5 minutes. So in the workshop next, we're going to be diving into a little bit more of how to implement it, because that's a lengthy conversation, at least longer than 7 minutes here. And also how to just create those inclusive environments that should hopefully already exist in the organization, or the foundation at least, right? But how to build upon that to make sure we're including everybody in the conversation. But do we have any questions from the audience? Yes. Do we have a microphone, or? Do we want to come up? Sorry, I don't want to keep jumping up and down with heels.
Hi. Am I being heard? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So thank you so much for the panel. It was really informative. My question is, so in my experience and in the experience of a lot of my peers, people of color and women tend to not be taken seriously if they don't come into these roles with a formal degree. It's a lot less likely that you'll be taken seriously if you're a person of color who doesn't have a computer science degree or something similar. So my question is kind of two parts. The first thing is, so I know that this is backed by the Department of Labor, so how does apprentice model allow for that perception to change in the industry? And in your experience of how it's going so far, do you see that those perceptions are being changed?
I'm going to ask a company first, and then I will chime in after.
So I can certainly jump in a little bit, and I think that's a great question. And so one of the models, or how we partner, Amazon partners with Apprenti, is we actually do a selection process up front. So we do an interview and actually look for great cultural fit with Amazon before formalized instruction actually starts. And so the folks who are actually conducting those interviews are the teams in which our apprentices will land. And so one of the things that we found really effective is our teams are actually very invested in the individuals that they bring on for an apprenticeship long before they ever land on their team. And so one, they've selected them, they said, yes, we're behind this person. Then they go through instructor-led training where they're getting cheered on by the team going, hey, how's it going? Did you pass that test? Did you make it through? So by the time they are landing on a team, the team is ready and eager for them to be a part. And we're not seeing that distinction because we're already invested before it gets started.
Yeah, and part of that interview process is that there's no background or resume that goes to that team. So the person coming in may have a college degree, may not have a college degree, but that team doesn't get to know that. They only get to know some relevant skill sets that the person might be bringing to the table and how they perform during our assessment as a starting point for the interview process. And it's a soft skills interview, and it's about that fit with the team. I can say that, as our model has evolved, Microsoft has the approach that they get really hyper involved even when the apprentices are in the classroom portion, so that there's that integration with the team before they even start the job, and that mentorship is that vested interest is already there in seeing those folks succeed, and the relationships are already building before they get there. And I think that will help to make a more seamless and smooth transition for the apprentice into the job. And all of our partners have a desire and a goal of a 90% retention. So it's in the team's best interest to help them succeed when the apprentice gets there.
Thank you.
Well, I think it might be great to ask Sean as well.
Yeah.
You did this, right? You lived this experience, and you and another apprentice, are in the are at AVO right now. Have you seen any differences? Have you seen any backlash or? Oh, there we go.
No. I think I made up all that stuff in my own head, approaching the job. I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I am a minority, so I know I might not have many people that look like me. One of the first meetings I went into was 20 developers, one Indian guy, all white guys, and me. So like initially from the beginning, I kind of created these things in my mind that kind of hampered my success in the beginning. Just having energy spent in places that they shouldn't have been. But yeah, AVO's been great at including me into their organization.
So, and I'll actually say we have had those problems at AVO, but those people don't work at AVO anymore. Like, that's just not acceptable, right? And to be honest, like, we had a bunch of developers who didn't have CS degrees. Maybe they had math degree or whatever. And those are the folks that stayed. They were already senior developers, and they love. Like, one of the developers set up a CS fundamentals class because we had all these folks coming in from boot camps or other sort of non-traditional backgrounds, and they could code fine, but they didn't have some of the background that you might have gotten in a CS degree program that might be useful. So he took it upon himself, this developer. He's like, this would be pretty cool to teach. And he's been just doing a class. That's not even something I came up with. It's something he came up with on his own, just working with these folks. So where I saw it or where it raised up, I either made it clear, like, we're not going to do that at our company, and some folks decided to go. If that was important to them, that's not going to be what I'm going to allow. So I made a very conscious decision around that and have enforced it. So I do have a CS degree. I've worked in Microsoft and companies where that's required. I have never seen anything that says that you can be as good a coder with a CS degree as you can without one, right? So from my own personal experience, I don't think that's the case.
We barely have one more time for one more question. We might have to finish the answer in the workshop, but or afterwards. Sure, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay. Hi, I'm Ariana. I'm actually a business school student at Michigan Ross, but prior to working there, I worked at Year Up, which is a similar apprenticeship program serving low-income young adults, and actually positioning them into like the middle skill labor piece. So not necessarily coding roles and things like that, but maybe like IT support. And I actually interned at Microsoft this past summer. So one of the challenges I remember from working at Europe is we did a great job of getting these young adults into these companies, but kind of similar to the question before, there wasn't a lot that we could do to track, like, are they actually ending up in leadership roles? So what is the development that goes on once we get them into the companies, and can we play a role in that? So I'm just curious to know if any of you are thinking about, okay, now we got some folks in the door, but how do we ensure that we are creating pathways so that they can end up in leadership roles at these companies as well?
That's great. And one quick person can answer real fast, and then, and I think that's a great follow-up question, because I know you have a lot to say on that, Jennifer.
All right, real quick. So to the professionalism and just bringing in other kinds of experiences, to me that's a huge step towards being a leader someday. We're too early for us to have anybody ready to make that jump, but I would very much hope and try and guide anybody who's Sean or anybody else that thinks that might be something they want to do. I would love that. I will tell you a sneaky trick about how we're doing some of this is now when I have leaders come in to interview, like from other places, more experienced leaders, they see an environment that is diverse. One, they know that's going to be the place they're going to work and that's going to be expected. But then two, it also helps me attract more diverse and underrepresented groups into more senior leadership positions. So it's a kind of a sneaky way to also bring in more underrepresented groups in leadership. And I hope my hope is that the folks that we're bringing in will become leaders and we'll help them get there.
That's great. And we'll follow up afterwards. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll get off the stage now.
And we invite you to join us at the workshop. In what room after this?
The workshop space that way.
That direction,
yes.
Down the hall, if you care to dive deeper.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.